Well, good morning. We're at last wrapping up our way through the book of Genesis. It's taken us many series, many weeks and months to get here, but this is it. I wanted to start out by asking you this morning, have you ever experienced deep cravings? Of course you have. Sometimes they can be triggered by an old habit. Think of the coffee drinker, right? You get up in the morning, you smell that first cup. I know all about this, right? I can describe it for you in detail. The slight headache when you roll out of bed and you haven't had your coffee yet. The oils of the coffee, all of the smells from the beans to the brewing. We use La Colombe at home. It's a good local company. It's available a lot of places. But the thing that I really like about it is, I've tried all of these local micro roasters, and some of them are good, but the problem is a lot of times it's actually too fresh, which means that the coffee, when you roast it, there's gas in the beans, and over time the coffee will do what's called outgassing, right? It'll release that and there will be less in the beans. Well, if you just roasted it yesterday, it's like super fresh, but if it's too fresh, it adds a lot of extra variables to the brewing process. And if there's a lot of gas in those beans, it's going to bloom up really fast and you're not going to be able to control it. So I like that these, it's local enough that it's fresh, but it's still sort of like a big company in that they ship it out to all the different places. And it's been in the packages and on the shelf for just long enough that that has really balanced out and become very even and predictable. So you can brew a predictable cup of coffee. Of course, you're going to use filtered water. You don't want to be adding any other flavors to it. You want the coffee itself to shine, and then you control all the variables that you can, and you get a really, really good cup of coffee. And it's just so satisfying deep down in your bones. Sometimes those cravings could be triggered by novelty. An unexpected smell could stir up a gnawing in your gut, like you're just driving down Columbus Boulevard and you've got your window cracked because it's a nice day and you can smell fried food, and you just get that gnawing in your gut for a cheesesteak, even though you didn't know that you were even hungry for anything at all, and it becomes almost a physical growling out of nowhere. You can taste it just by imagining it, right? It doesn't always have to be a physical sensation. It could be completely imaginary. Sometimes there's a particular circumstance that can remind you of the love that you long for and feel deprived of. Someone else is enjoying their significant other or makes a totally neutral comment that could stir up that longing and craving and emptiness. I remember we were back first year of seminary, Dr. Whitmer, Practical Theology. Don't remember the name of the class, but anyway, he said something along the lines of, and I wasn't married back then. And, you had a good mix of students who were married or who weren't. And he says to the class, think about how miserable your life would be without your wife. And all of the single guys in the room, it's like, well, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that for the last 10 minutes. Gee, thanks. Stirring up that sense of emptiness by drawing, unintended attention to it. Well, how is it this morning that Jesus wants to overwhelmingly fill your emptiness? That's what we're asking. And that's what we're going to dig at from these texts here in chapter 45 and 46. You'll remember that we've already sort of touched on 48, 49, and 50, slightly out of order. But how does Jesus want to overwhelmingly fill your emptiness? Well, he wants to do it abundantly, freely, and with newness. So first of all, abundant life. Think again about the scenario that's going on here. These brothers are on the brink of starvation back at home. because of the famine, and now they've journeyed to Egypt not once but twice. They have risked their freedom through all of this ordeal, because it really is a life and death situation. And now, unexpectedly, out of the blue, they are reconciled to Joseph, and he invites them to come down here and to have all the resources of Egypt at their disposal. When Pharaoh hears about this plan, he likewise, because of his great love for Joseph and how successful Joseph has been in saving the nation, he invites in these foreigners for Joseph's sake. Why? Because they are his family. God gives the riches of the unbelievers to his people for the sake of his promise. Proverbs 13:22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth is laid up for the righteous." Just as an aside here, what does this teach us about hospitality? That even the unbelievers can show such unimaginable kindness to the needy? Without getting too political, what does this teach us about at least one very important concern in an admittedly complicated question like immigration policy? Aren't Joseph's family economic migrants? They're fleeing a famine, after all. Furthermore, they are welcomed precisely because they are the family members of someone who's already there. And that is integral to the story. So, just an aside to kind of chew on. I'm not taking a side one way or another, or eliminating other factors. But right, family and God just are the story of Genesis. Look at verse 1. The God of my father. That's repeated over and over and over in this book, and by God himself, to identify himself. I am the God of your fathers. I'm the God of your family, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Many will use it as a point of weakness. Oh, you only are a Christian because you were raised that way. Your parents brainwashed you into being a Christian. What if you had been born in a Muslim country? Then you would be Muslim, right? Wouldn't you? Or a Hindu country? Well, first of all, not necessarily, right? That's just a bad argument. It doesn't follow. There's no logical necessity to it, right? We see plenty of children in the book of Genesis who sadly apostatize, who turn away. Esau is the prime example of that. He is used all throughout the Bible as the example of an apostate, someone who is of the chosen family and yet turns away, does not have faith in his heart. But the Bible sees the generational transmission of faith as a great blessing. That you are not a second-class Christian because you cannot remember a time when you weren't one. So to jump back into our story, how is God filling the great need here? The abundance of Egypt is given to satisfy and fill his hungry ones. These back and forth trips, whenever they run low on food, is a poor substitute for what the Lord can provide. But of course, this will require a move for the whole family. And so what does he do? He says, leave behind your belongings so that you can come and enjoy the best, Pharaoh says. Look at the wagons and the gifts that are sent. These are over the top by design. 20 extra donkeys, new suits, a fortune in silver. This is not just going to give them bare subsistence. They're not going from famine to now barely scraping by. No, this family is going from famine to the utmost abundance. Jesus says in John 10 that he came to give life meagerly, barely, no, abundantly. More than everything we need to carry us safely down to Egypt. Are you satisfied, brother and sister, with less than God's best? Are you coming back again and again and again It's what the Bible calls broken cisterns. Are you wasting time and effort to satisfy that deep longing? What does God say through his prophet in Jeremiah 2? My people have committed 2 sins. They have forsaken me, and the thing that they've replaced me with is, it's unworkable. It just doesn't do the job. It's the definition of foolishness. Or again in John chapter 4, the woman at the well. Why is she there in the middle of the day? To avoid the shame of everyone publicly knowing about all of her tea, all of her immorality. See, the problem isn't water, right? Give me some of this water so that I won't have to come here and keep drawing. The problem isn't even that you are pursuing the wrong thing, but that you're pursuing the right thing in the wrong way. That it simply cannot reach deep down to the permanent, endless well, the living water with a broken pot. But Jesus offers not a drop here or there, but forever satisfaction. So what's your craving? Is it love? Is it belonging? Is it significance? Is it acceptance, community? All of that is in Jesus. So secondly, look with me at how Jesus fills us freely. Look at the free life that is in him. You see, if these riches are coming to this family from outside and unexpected and at Egypt's expense, right? It's Pharaoh's money. They are also, by extension, free and unearned as far as the brothers are concerned. They didn't go get a job. After all, strict deserving will not end well for this group, will it? If they really get what they deserve. No, we've seen that already. Sin is rampant. They deserve fury and wrath, punishment. They are guilty. But at the same time, receiving hospitality, receiving grace is actually offensive to our pride, because we do, all of us, have this deep down desire to earn it, to pay our own way. And so we so often go back and forth in our own lives between thoughts of, I deserve this, and I don't need your charity. We look down at free gifts, and we look down at ourselves for needing them sometimes. And that misplaced pride runs deep in our sinful human natures. We suppress the truth that we know about our guilt and what we really deserve, and we convince ourselves that we deserve better than we're getting. Maybe other people, they're guilty. They don't deserve good things, but we go soft on ourselves, don't we? We hold out clear, strict justice for others when we're wronged, but we have infinite mercy and flexibility for ourselves when the tables are turned. So in contrast, what does this passage prescribe for God's people by way of example? First of all, we see that it commends the humble and the needy. The pagans here are an instrument for that blessing. That must be incredibly humbling for a family that's been raised on the message that they are special and chosen by God. But of course, remember, God never said that he chose them because they are so great in and of themselves, apart from him. No, quite the opposite. He chose them when they were nothing and made them something because of him. But it doesn't take long for the human heart to make that leap. That if I am chosen, then these Egyptians, and really all theys, all others, are rejected. To take a theological truth and twist it into an ethnic thing. Because really, that's the trajectory of the whole rest of the Old Testament. God's people will confuse God's free choice by grace through faith with their own inherent superiority based on something in them. Well, that narrative gets a little bit complicated when it's the Egyptians who are saving your butt, isn't it? That narrative gets a little bit upended when your little brother who is saving you is married to an Egyptian. And you have to go live among them. I mean, talk about a pride check. Talk about an opportunity for humility and gratitude. You see, throughout the scriptures, that distorted view is never the sanctioned one. It's just that. It's a distortion. It's a misinterpretation of what God's free grace is supposed to mean. The poor, helpless one who trusts in God is blessed. Luke 6:20-21, he lifted up his eyes on his disciples and said, "Blessed are the poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry, for you will be satisfied. Blessed are you who weep, for you will laugh." You see that? Deep craving, hunger, helplessness, poverty receives blessing and filling. Desert, merit, is a poor substitute for grace. Superiority based on culture or family identity or personal achievement never has been enough. It falls far short of the mark and what God intends for us. But the gospel is always a free invitation. Whether we find that gospel in Genesis or John or Acts or anywhere else. So let me ask you, how are you satisfying those deepest longings, those cravings of your heart? The ones you've all experienced, the ones that come with hidden prices. You think about your cable bill or your phone bill with all of those hidden fees, or at least the ads that tell you that your bills have hidden fees. If these brothers had held on to their pride and their superiority from before, who does snot-nosed Joseph think he is? It surely would have cost them. And actually, the whole nation descended from them, their lives. Certainly, there's lots of family heartache and strife along the way. Are you today satisfied with things that simply cost you way too much? Are you not assessing those hidden costs? Because you think that the fulfillment is worth it. It's not. Let me bring us to our last point this morning, new life. Our third focus from these verses is that this salvation, offers not only abundant life for our deepest hungers, not only free life for our longings, but completely new life. And it's new in two specific ways. The first way is resurrection, that there is life after death. This is new life in the sense of restoring or reversing or renewing, right? Making something new again, renewing it. The brothers come back home to Canaan for the last time, and they report back to their father Jacob. And what is the substance of their report? Amid all of the newfound riches that they now have, they focus on Joseph is alive. We thought he was dead, and now he is living. We found him. There is resurrection here. Life after presumed death. And what is the response? Jacob is completely numb. You know what that feels like. Have you ever been so happy that it was almost impossible to believe? That kind of shock. Your eyes just kind of glaze over, and you simply cannot process whatever it is that you just heard. But then also look at the dramatic and drastic transformation in Jacob at the last. Look with me. Let's compare way back in chapter 37. All his sons and daughters rose up to comfort him. This is 37:35. But he refused to be comforted and said, "No, I will go down to Sheol to my son mourning." Thus his father wept for Joseph. This is Jacob's response to the last time these brothers came and told him what happened to Joseph. And now, in 45:28, Israel, that is Jacob, said, "It is enough. My son is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." There's joy. It's enough. Finally, when he thought that Joseph was lost forever, he had transferred all of that favoritism to the younger brother Benjamin for years. But it never quite satisfied that longing to have Joseph back. It never quite filled or made up for that loss. He was a poor substitute, son though he was. And although Benjamin was deserving of love and fatherly affection for his own sake as Benjamin, he must have had that weight on him that he could never bring Joseph back. No, it's only new life, God-given resurrection that can overcome death. But to hear the good news, the dead son lives. And he's invited us to come be with him so that we will not die. And he has supplied all of our needs against all hope. This is surely a foreshadowing of our resurrection hope in Christ, the Son who died and now lives and invites us to be with him so that we will not die, and who supplies all our needs. But it's new life also, not only because of resurrection, but because it is a break with the past. This is a new chapter in the fulfillment of these promises that we've been focusing on for so much of this book. There are changes. There's a turning. Flip back to chapter 15. Look at this. This is 15:13-16. The Lord said to Abram during this promises, this covenant, "Know for certain that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterward they shall come out with great possessions. As for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace, and shall be buried in a good old age, and they shall come back here in the 4th generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete." Not all of that promise is good news. At least in, sort of the middle term. Short-term good news, long-term great news. But in the middle term, there's some rocky stuff there. And we find that actually this is right on schedule. His descendants do go down to Egypt. And they will, in very short order, go through that period of enslavement and suffering before they return to the promised land. But most importantly, this entire plan is God approved. Unlike so many of the other sojourns down into the land of Egypt that this family has made throughout this book, away from the promised land, that were motivated by fear and unbelief, this one at last is sanctioned by the Lord. And on the way traveling there, Jacob stops to worship at Beersheba. What's significant about that? It's the southernmost edge of what will later be Israelite territory. There's a phrase that pops up later in the history books, all Israel from Dan to Beersheba. Means all Israel from the north to the south. Dan is the northernmost point, Beersheba is the southernmost point. It's the closest to Egypt you can get and still be in the promised land. If I take one more step, Mr. Frodo, it'll be the furthest away from home I've ever been. He worships at Beersheba, and God replies and gives him the green light to take that step in faith. This is also the last time that God speaks directly to the patriarchs. And what does he do? He summarizes all of those promises of the whole book of Genesis that have gone before. He reiterates them, encourages, gives confidence. You will have my presence. I will go with you. You will have my protection. I will make you into a great nation. There's a promise of growth that will be fulfilled. At least for now, it's going to be fulfilled in Egypt. I will go with you and I will bring you back. I will personally, the Lord. And Jacob, who once had despaired of life, will die. Not my gray head down to Sheol, but in peace, surrounded by loved ones. One more aside here. Why is it that Joseph says to his brothers, and by the way, don't argue on the way, there in verse 24. That's not just a throwaway line. Why might they have reason to quarrel with each other? You think it might be because of all their past sins? That when they go up to their father and tell him that Joseph's alive, that Jacob will finally know, not merely suspect what they did or tried to do to Joseph. Surely he has his suspicions that he wasn't told the whole story. But now they'll have to come clean. And maybe there's a little bit of blame game going on between the brothers on their way. Right? Be sure your sin will find you out. But also, he says, don't fight about it. Don't blame each other, because this sin has been forgiven completely. It is not something to be avoided or ignored. It is powerless to condemn you. The lavish gifts, the reception as a family, the inclusion, the provision prove that the offense is once and for all buried. It's completely covered. There is no need for guilt or shame or defensiveness. Are you able to do that? Can you confess real, specific sins? Not just in general, oh God, I'm a sinner, but in all of their particular, specific hatefulness. Not either to glory in them with longing backward glances, nor either to wallow in shame, but simply to glory in the fact that they are dead and buried with our Lord Jesus. Can you glorify Jesus for your continual forgiveness for his sake? Can you call your old life what it is with all of its empty, deceitful desires and then genuinely break with it for the satisfaction of what is new and better? Or are you satisfied with the things that represent your former life? Are you really going to walk in newness of life? Romans 6:4. We were buried with Jesus by baptism into death, in order that just as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, we too might walk in newness of life. And then just to hammer the point of newness and a fresh start home, what do we get? The list of all 70 names as this family decisively steps into God's newness by faith. As a Christian, this is the fulfilling of gospel promises. Because this is also, spiritually speaking, your family tree. This is the family tree into which God grafts you in. He raises the dead to life and makes them part of a family. He richly provides abundance. He makes them glad. He unites them. He forgives. He provides. He lavishes. God is not stingy. He understands your deepest desires. And he longs to give you the best. The Son we hated and killed because he pointed out our sin and failure, has invited us to join him in a land of pilgrimage in Egypt, where, yes, there will be hard labor to come, but it's where He is with us. He's torn down every dividing wall between us, reconciled us to each other and to Him, and become the King of the land. And He's promised to be with us and provide for our every need. And He lavishes us with life that is abundant and free and new. That's what's yours when you come to Jesus Christ in faith. That's what Joseph is a picture of. And that's where the book of Genesis leaves us. Will you pray with me?